Hi, everyone. Good afternoon from the team at Birch Aquarium at Scripps.
Oh,
Hi, my name is Caitlin, and I'm here with Delaney, and we have a very special talk for you this afternoon, as our kelp cam is still down temporarily due to the red tide cloudiness. But we thought since the red tide and bioluminescence and glowing animals seem to be on everybody's mind, Delaney and I would take some time to talk to you guys, not only about what's happening in our local waters, but then also taking a bit of a deeper dive into how and why different animals like to glow. So Delaney, I know you're a bit of a familiar face now, but do you want to introduce yourself to everybody again?
yes. I've been on these a couple times now, but we're going to be doing something different today. But my name's Delaney, and I'm one of the educators at Birch Aquarium. And we are having a segment today called Think Like a Scientist. So we want you to get your thinking caps on, and we're going to go through the scientific process and try to figure out why do some creatures glow in the ocean, and talking a lot about our recent red tide event.
Definitely. And I really hope that you guys will participate with us in the comments, whether or not you're watching on Facebook Live or on YouTube. I'll be able to see your comments as they're coming in. And we're hoping that you guys will help us make some scientific guesses and help us think about why some of these animals are gonna glow, which is gonna be really cool. So Delaney, why don't you get things kicked off for us?
Yeah, so asking people tuning in, have you seen the recent red tide event? Caitlin, have you seen the red tide event, or maybe you've smelled the red tide event?
I have not gone down to the beach to see it at night. However, I have smelled it, and I know I was joking the other day, my house the other day smelled like I was sleeping in a tide pool. And so that is that red tide that we are able to smell or see if you socially distance beach trip in the evenings.
Yeah, looks like Amene from Solana Beach. They saw it last night.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, and Megan saw it last week. So cool. Yeah, so it's a really special thing that happens around the world, but here in Southern California, it's hard to predict. Some people say, when is it going to happen? And we go, nature is
Yeah.
in many ways, but luckily, Birch Aquarium, we are affiliated with Scripps Institution of Oceanography, which is part of UC San Diego, and we have some of the world experts on bioluminescence, which is going to be our big word of the day today, or glowing creatures who study them. So Delaney, do you want to tell us some of the scoop from Scripps?
Yeah, so for those of you who aren't local to San Diego, this is actually a recent video from the Scripps Pier showing you what the bioluminescence looks like at nighttime. And there are researchers at Scripps, one in particular, Mike Latz, who studies the single-celled organisms that create this bioluminescent event that are part of these large blooms, these large red tides. So these organisms can shed a lot of light on ways that animals use light for all sorts of survival strategies like communication, defense, offensive strategies, and really just for them to survive in a dark place when it's nighttime or in the deep, dark ocean where light is really limited.
Definitely. And here in our local waters in San Diego, this bloom has been seen from Baja California in Mexico all the way up through Los Angeles. So it's not just localized to San Diego's waters. And the springtime is actually a time when there are naturally occurring plankton blooms in the oceans in Southern California, especially for algae or plankton that are doing photosynthesis with the sun that they need to grow, because not only is there a lot of nutrients in the water, the days are longer, so they're able to get more sunlight, which means more time for them to grow. So the springtime is often when we get one of the largest plankton blooms just in general. But these plankton blooms are not always special like this one. They're not always glowing ones.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate to have a really long event occurring and a really bright event. So people have been asking, why do these organisms glow? What are they doing and how are they doing it? And that's what we're going to be trying to answer today in our chat here is why do some ocean organisms glow? And Caitlin, how as a scientist do we answer questions about the ocean and about the animals that live there?
Well, what we like to do when we are putting our science hats on is we channel our curiosity. To me, curiosity is one of the most important things to have if you're a scientist. And you want to ask a scientific question that you can try to find an answer for. So that scientific question that you can try to find an answer for has a very special name.
Hypothesis.
Pretty cool. So yeah, are you guys able to make some hypotheses in our comments? So can you guys take some guesses? Why do you think animals might want to glow or create light or even reflect light to help them survive? We're asking you guys to take some guesses, and we'll read some of your hypotheses as we go. Let's see. Anybody putting things in there? Oh, we do have more questions about red tide. Guys, we'll promise we'll answer a few more questions about the red tide as we go on. We're going to dive into these hypotheses first.
Well, thinking about the recent red tide, you know, a lot of people are noticing it's only at nighttime. So I think as a scientist, I would be curious as what's so special about the nighttime that these animals are deciding to light up then?
Yeah, that's a really good thought. And then also thinking about in the ocean, there are many, many different habitats and ecosystems or places where creatures like to live. Not all animals that live in the ocean live in places where there's light during the day. Some parts of the ocean, it is dark 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't think they use our human time because it's just dark always. And for us, that might be a little depressing, but for the animals that live down there, that's life. And they have these really cool ways to survive in those dark parts of the ocean. Very cool. So it looks like we have a few guesses so far. Nusrat is guessing, is bioluminescence a way for animals to maybe find each other? That's a really good guess.
Yeah.
Ooh. And then Angela has a guess. Could it be to help with feeding or helping them to find food? Yeah. That's a really good guess too. Let's see. And we had one more. Oh, Megan has a guess. Isla is this, thinks that they glow to protect themselves as a way to keep themselves safe. That's a really good guess.
Really good guess.
Really good guess. So should we dive into some of these creatures? Oh, ooh, wait, we got this one. I almost missed it. Sharon's guessing maybe their skin is special and it charges up during the day. That's a really great hypothesis. How cool. Yeah, so let's talk about some of these cool creatures and talk about also what is it that causes them to glow?
Yeah, so in order to sort of test these hypotheses and figure out what are these animals doing when they're glowing, there's a really important part about how and why animals make light in the ocean. And it's diving into understanding what are the different types of light that organisms can emit or create themselves. So Caitlin's been mentioning the word bioluminescence. And this is a really big science word. And that is what our red tide has been displaying so far. These microscopic plankton have been showing bioluminescence. They're creating their own light. And biofluorescence is another way that animals can create light. So diving a bit more into bioluminescence, Caitlin, do we recognize this animal right here?
I think I might have seen it a few times. And anyone who has ever watched one of my favorite shows, Blue Planet, may have seen this, or Planet Earth had them also. And then anybody who might be a Finding Nemo fan may also recognize this toothy deep sea fish. It's an anglerfish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this anglerfish, maybe if you remember from the movie Finding Nemo, it's got this dangling light that it uses, and that light is a light that it's creating itself. So bioluminescence is essentially a chemical reaction in the organism's body that allows the animal or the organism to just emit light. It's really, really cool. And organisms are able to control this biological component inside of them. So essentially, bioluminescence is the creation of light through a chemical reaction. So if you can imagine a glow stick, if you've ever broken a glow stick before, you're actually creating a chemical reaction. And it's essentially the same thing happening in organisms that bioluminesce, which is
That's a really great example, Delaney. I don't know how I've worked at the aquarium so long and not heard the glow stick analogy. That's exactly it. And I grew up on the East Coast of the United States. I grew up in Connecticut. And so where I grew up, we would have fireflies or lightning bugs, depending on where you're from, that would glow every night. So in the summer times, not in the winter. But bioluminescence is something that doesn't just happen in the ocean. There are creatures on the land who can create their own light through those chemical reactions, like a firefly. But there are also animals in the ocean that create it as well. So it's not just unique to the sea.
Definitely. Lots of glowing animals.
Yeah, really cool.
The other type of light or glow we're talking about is biofluorescence, which this is the one a lot of people might not be familiar with as a light strategy in living organisms. And maybe you've seen this animal before. This is a swell shark. We actually have them at Birch Aquarium and they live locally. And in the figure below, figure B, it looks normal, right? That's how we imagine a swell shark. But figure A, it's literally glowing in the dark. Which is really cool. So biofluorescence is an animal that's able to emit light in a light spectrum that is not visible to our human eyes. So we have this visible light spectrum that includes colors red, orange, green, blue, violet. Beyond violet is ultraviolet or UV light. And if you've ever played around with a black light to make things glow in the dark, that's essentially what this creature is doing. It has a special kind of light outside of our visible spectrum that's shining on its body, and it's reflecting back this cool neon green color, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And for anyone who scuba dives or snorkels or even has ever visited Birch Aquarium for one of our evening events, if you look at a swell shark just with the naked eye or through your dive mask, you're not going to see these bright colors. Scientists are using a special camera that can see those other parts of the light spectrum that our eyes cannot see in order to get these photos of the swell shark, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, a lot of scientists use biofluorescence in many different science experiments in order to find things that we just can't see with our normal eyes. So biofluorescence is really important in science discoveries for sure.
Definitely. And biofluorescence is another thing that's not just in the ocean. Researchers have actually found that many types of birds, their feathers are able to fluoresce in really amazing ways that we had no idea. So studying biofluorescence is really one of those more emerging sciences that hasn't been around for too long. And we're really excited that there are scientists at Scripps Oceanography who are studying this in our local waters with our swell sharks and other creatures, as well as beyond. So we'll be touching on a little bit more of the fluorescent things later on as well. Definitely.
So now that we have a little bit of a basis to help us explore our hypotheses and dive into our question today, I think it's time to test them and explore some glowing creatures. What do you think, Caitlin?
I definitely think so. And may I interrupt for 1 second? I feel like Patty has a question that we might want to answer before going into this. Yeah. Can other fish see the biofluorescence with their eyes? So this is something that the scientists are still in the process of studying. It's assumed, we believe, that, for example, a swell shark would be able to see another swell shark's fluorescence. However, does that mean another type of shark or another type of fish would also be able to see it? I'm not quite sure of the answer, and we're not even quite sure if scientists know the answer all the way yet. So we think, we're making a hypothesis that the swell sharks can see each other. However, we're still learning, and somebody has to go out and prove the hypothesis that they're the only ones, or maybe another fish can see them. So it's kind of cool to think that they're almost more advanced with their eyes than we are to see each other that way. So that's a great question, Patty. And it's something that we all will hopefully figure out soon.
Definitely. So as we explore these animals, we want all of you tuning in to think about your hypothesis and think about, are these animals bioluminescing or biofluorescing? So bioluminescing, are they creating their own light, or are they fluorescing and reflecting light back in the right light environment?
Oh, sorry, Delaney. I wanted to say sometimes they're two really big words and it's hard to remember. But if you think biofluorescence has an F in the middle of it and reflect has an F in the middle of it, it's kind of a sneaky way to help remember that biofluorescence is when it's reflecting the light off of its body rather than creating it.
Great way to remember. Awesome. And we want you to also think about how they're using light for survival. Back to what we introduced in the very beginning.
Definitely. And I see some people are putting in their hypotheses still, so keep them coming.
All right. So this first organism, it has everything to do with our recent red tide event. And you can see this isn't a glowing picture. So what are we seeing in this ocean here, Caitlin?
Yeah, so that kind of muddy red color, at a glance, you might think it's a river or a lake, but that muddy kind of reddish color is the red tide. And the red tide we have off our coast, if anybody's seen the bloom or the copious amounts of plankton out there during the day, red tide is not just a clever name, it does have a reddish hue to it. However, as Delaney mentioned before, all of those plankton are teeny tiny microscopic. They're so small that in order for scientists to collect them, they have to collect them with a net that has holes that are cut by lasers, like super tiny. I know, the plankton net in nanometers. That's a nice metric way to think about it, but very, very incredibly small holes. And Delaney, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what type of plankton the dinoflagellates are? Like what?
So dinoflagellates are neither a plant or an animal. They're similar to algae. They're called protist, and they're these single-celled organisms that live in the ocean. And the picture we have here, that shows you a single dinoflagellate, which is this plankton type organism. And you can see it has a really interesting body shape. And this is just one example of a type of dinoflagellate species. There's many, many types, and our researchers at Scripps they study different species of these organisms. So this is just to show you that they have special body parts to help them move around in the water and to keep at the surface. Because you can imagine being small and microscopic, it's probably can be a challenge to move around in the big, big ocean.
Definitely.
So they look different. They're going to be shaped differently. But our recent red tide event is made up of specifically 2 different species of dinoflagellates, which dinoflagellate is also another fun and difficult science.
Yes, and I know that name comes from the flagella. Whoa. Science. We're talking a lot of science words, or those little things that are kind of dangling around from the top. So I'm pointing at my screen like you can see it, but those parts that are coming down off the top are the flagella. So that's where the dinoflagellate name does come from. Yeah. So I feel like this was a good one to start out with because I think people might be able to guess if it's bioluminescent or biofluorescent. You guys let us know in the comments. Can you guys guess which one this one is? Give you a second.
And this one has been lighting up in the waves at nighttime. So it's bioluminescing during the energy and the movement of the waves crashing onto themselves. So that energy is making them light up. So I'm curious as to why they're choosing to light up when energy is moving through them. So that can maybe help to figure out why dinoflagellates use light.
Definitely. Oh man, I think Patty had a good hypothesis. Patty says bioluminescent. There we go. Patty, I think that's a Patty, very appropriate profile picture right now.
Wow.
I think you might be a pro with bioluminescence and things like that. Yeah. And Sharon Gray is also guessing bioluminescent. So I think that you guys might be making some very good guesses. What do you think, Delaney?
I think bioluminescent.
I think so too. And something that's really cool is I give this analogy when we used to teach, or when I used to teach the little kids in the classroom. If you were this tiny dinoflagellate and something was going to come and eat you, it's probably a good idea to light up, because if I was about to eat something like a chicken nugget, which I think is very delicious and kind of small, and I was about to put it in my mouth, and then all of a sudden the chicken nugget was glowing bright blue, I would probably go, ah! and drop my chicken nugget and give it an opportunity to escape. So you can think about it, that's a pretty cool adaptation for this tiny creature. Very cool. Should we go to the next one?
We shall.
All right. Whoa.
Big contrast in colors here. This is a yellow stingray. And if you've seen a stingray in the wild before, during the daytime, if you've been swimming or making sure you're doing your stingray shuffle when you go to the beach, you might know that they like to live and bury themselves under the sand. So this animal at nighttime will leave that sandy habitat to go exploring. And it's at nighttime that you might notice in this picture here, it's lighting up. So what do we think? Is it creating its own light? Is it maybe reflecting light back through biofluorescence?
Ooh, I don't know. And just so you know, the stingray does not look like this all the time. Usually it's more of a sandy color. Very cool, very cool. So let us know. Ooh, we have one guess for biofluorescence so far. Let's see if we have any other ones come in. Oh, well, we had a good question while we're waiting for people to take their guess. How did scientists discover biofluorescence? That's a great question. So I don't quite know the answer to that one, Delaney. Do you know how they discovered it?
I'm not quite sure. I'm sure it's when we started testing different spectrums of light, and, you know, things that are outside of the visible light for humans are things like an X-ray machine or lasers or UV light. So when people maybe started getting sunburns from the sun, maybe that's when they realized, what's going on here? Is there light we're not seeing that affects us in different ways? And maybe from there, they started investigating it with animals.
Yeah, I know that for the swell sharks that we were talking about before, that one came up as a little bit of a surprise. There were the scientists using underwater cameras to look at UV light and to look at the light that we can't see with our normal eye. And a swell shark went by and they went, whoa, what happened? Whoa. And so that led to more questions and forming more hypotheses, because scientists are nothing if not curious to try to figure out, well, why does a shark need to glow or fluoresce in their day-to-day life? So it's one of those things where we stumbled upon it, I believe, and now scientists are asking those questions to try to figure out not only why they're doing this, but also how many creatures do.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. All right, guys, we've given you some time. So let's see. What do you guys think? I think that Patty may have gotten it again. And then Nusrat chimed in and a few other people. This one is, Delaney.
Biofluorescence. Yes.
Very cool.
This animal's biofluorescing. As you can see, it's glowing. It looks like it might under a black light. So absolutely. And this animal might use biofluorescence for communication or even camouflage. Again, it depends on the habitat it's living in. And for communication, what type of communication? I'm not sure. Is it finding a mate? Is it signaling to others there's food in the area? That's for you guys to try to figure out. All right, this next one's one of my favorite animals. It's a flower hat.
It's beautiful.
Isn't it beautiful?
A very cool creature. A very cool. And yeah, tell us more about this cool animal, Delaney.
Yeah, so this is actually found in the Pacific Ocean, northwestern Pacific Ocean. So over off the coast of Japan, might be in tropical, subtropical waters. And this animal is really interesting because it's actually not a true jellyfish. What they do is, if you imagine a jellyfish, normally they're swimming in the water column using those tentacles to propel that bell or that body to move up and down and stay stable in the water. This is an animal that actually sinks to the bottom of the ocean during the day and settles down on that sandy floor. And so at nighttime, that's when it's going up to look for its prey.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting jelly, not jelly.
That's so cool. I feel like I'm learning new things on this one too. I didn't know that about the flower hat jellies. That's very cool. And there are actually many different animals within the ocean that do that vertical or up and down migration. And there are animals that will go from the seafloor to the surface. But sometimes, like in the middle of the open ocean, that water is really, really deep. So they might go from like the middle of the water to the surface and back down. So, and then there are some that don't even come to the surface. They just move up and down in the middle of the ocean. Very cool. So that's really neat that this jelly does that. So what do you guys think? The colors on this one could be, who knows? What do you think? Bioluminescence? Biofluorescence? What do you think on this flower hat jelly? Let us know in the comments.
Yellow and blue on it. It definitely looks like it's on a mission. It's in action, right?
It is, right? Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Mikey says biofluorescence.
Oh, very good. That's a great guess. Now, are there other jellies that will make color or glow or fluoresce?
There are lots of jellyfish are very well known for glowing. And if you've been to an aquarium before, if you've been to Birch Aquarium, a lot of jellyfish exhibits show them glowing. So this animal is actually a tricky one, and it's the tricky one we put in here for all of you to think about. If you look at it right away, it kind of has that same blue light to it that animals that bioluminesce have. And Patty here said they think it's a split. One person thinks it might bioluminesce, one of her kids, and the other kid thinks it biofluoresces.
Man, guys, welcome to the scientific world. That's the way it is.
So this is an animal that actually, I feel like I need a drum roll. It biofluoresces.
Whoa!
I know. So if you look,
not my first guess with this creature, I will say.
Yeah. If you look closely, you can see its reflection. So this is actually taken in an exhibit at an aquarium. And what a lot of aquariums will do to show those fluorescent colors on jellyfish is apply black lights to the exhibit. And it's neat because it introduces you into the world of jellyfish and potentially why they're fluorescing and what are they displaying or communicating through these colors. And this is a really special jellyfish, and it doesn't bioluminesce, it biofluoresces, but it also has a really intense venom, and it can eat an entire fish just through its venom. So that adaptation alone is enough for it to not need bioluminescence to attract its prey. So I found that to be really interesting in looking up about the flower hat jelly.
That is super cool. Man, what cool animals, guys. All right, you guys ready for the next one? We have a bunch. I want to make sure we get through them. One of our favorite creatures, perhaps looking slightly different than many of our followers might be used to seeing, but the Reedy Sea Dragon. This one is looking red. Please don't be confused. This is not a ruby sea dragon. This is indeed a true weedy sea dragon. Yeah. Very cool. Delaney, what's going on with this one?
Well, Reedy Sea Dragons, I feel like I could talk about them all day, but they're one of our signature species at Birch Aquarium. Reedy Sea Dragons are endemic to Australia coastal waters. They're related to seahorses. They have that fused jaw they use for suctioning up their food. And normally we're used to seeing the Reedy Sea Dragon with lots of beautiful browns and purples and yellows and green colors on its body, but we're now seeing it as this red organism, which is really interesting.
It is very interesting.
So what do we think? Do we think it's creating that light? Is it bioluminescing, or is it reflecting it back as biofluorescence?
Yeah, let's make our hypothesis. What do we think? Something to think about, as we are pondering whether or not it's fluorescence or luminescence, is where are these guys found in their habitats? So a lot of the times these weedy sea dragons are found in areas that have a lot of seaweed, like kelp and cold water seaweeds, as well as lots of sea grass. And there's usually a good amount of current that's moving them in these places, and they're using their camouflage to hide. So think about that. Would an animal want to reflect light in that situation, maybe, or create its own light? Let's do a few guesses. Thank you guys for playing along with this. Let's see. Candace is guessing bioluminescence. Oh man, we have a bunch of people. So good guess, Candace. We have Brian is also saying bioluminescence. And then Patty coming in again, bioluminescence.
Wow.
These are all great guesses. But guess what?
It is not bioluminescence, it's biofluorescence.
Nature is crazy.
And it's not reflecting that neon green blue light we're used to seeing. It's reflecting this red color. So I think that's time for a whole other live chat and segment to talk about red light in the ocean. But what we'll say is some organisms that use light for survival, not all of them are emitting that blue or green light. Some emit red light.
Very cool.
Color in the ocean is very interesting, and how it gets absorbed depending on where you're at and what organism it is.
Definitely. And I want to add about the Reedy Sea Dragons is that the fact that they biofluoresce or fluoresce the red light is actually something that was discovered not that long ago. And so even with our Reedy Sea Dragons in our exhibits, these animals are very sensitive to light and changes in light. And if you've ever visited Birch Aquarium, you'll probably see we have no flash all over our exhibit with the sea dragons because they are very sensitive to flash. However, the person who takes care of our sea dragons has taken a black light and very low, very calm, and shined it on the Reedy Sea Dragons within our exhibit. And it's not quite as bright as this photo, but I have seen them biofluoresce this red, and it is amazing. It's so cool. Lainey, did you see Leslie do that ever? Or maybe Jen? Yeah.
It's nice to see, because you're so used to seeing all their beautiful colors, and then you see it in this whole new light, and it's really spectacular.
A whole new light.
I keep putting puns out today.
We're keeping track of the puns.
Are you ready for
great guesses, guys. Really great guesses. Okay, what's our next creature? I'm very excited. Next one. Oh, the weird one. This one's so cool.
This one's so cool. This is called a Barreleye fish. And I'm just curious if people have ever seen this fish before or know what this animal is. Have you seen this fish before, Caitlin?
I have never seen this fish in person, and I think it's pretty rare for people to actually see this fish in person. However, I have seen it and seen it be narrated by Sir David Attenborough.
Oh, yes. So
tell more about this cool fish.
Such a unique deep sea fish. And what you can see is that it has such an interesting just face and head structure. It almost looks like you can see through into its organs, which you can. So this animal's eyes have the ability to look onward like ours, and they can rotate them to look above them. So think about this. Imagine, being a deep sea fish in a deep ocean where light is not able to penetrate. Why would this fish need to move its eyes around? What is it looking for? So what do you guys think? One, why do its eyes move? I feel like I got into a whole different, let's create a different hypothesis for why its eyes move around. But the eyes are in that glowing part of its body. So that head part. So what do we think about this fish?
Yeah, this is a crazy one. Let us know which one. Which one do you guys think? Bioluminescence? Biofluorescence? Darrell wants to know if this is a weird cousin of the sheep's head. In that it is a bony fish. They are technically sort of related, but they are not a type of sheep's head. They're bony fish. And I think something else that's really cool about this particular species is that they're very good at hovering within the water column. What they'll do is they will stay perfectly motionless, and then you'll see it has that really big pectoral or side fin on the side, and it'll use those pectoral fins to just hover and stare into the abyss.
Wow.
Really deep, that barreleye fish, but they do have those big pectoral fins to help them stay still in the water column. Oh, Julie thinks we're lying. Julie says, I don't think that thing glows.
Oh, interesting.
Spoiler alert. We're trying not to lie. And Audrey says it looks like a pilot inside a submarine. I agree. That's a really fun way to think about it.
Nice.
Very cool. All right. So, Brian has a really good guess. He said bioluminescent, and it's looking for other fish that are glowing for food.
Ooh.
Oh, we had a few more votes coming in for bioluminescent as well.
Yeah, well, it seems like people are starting to catch on and maybe shifting their hypotheses from the beginning, or making new discoveries. So this fish does bioluminesce. It's got these special organs that create this light. And bioluminescence isn't just something that can happen in an animal's skin. It can happen in the bones, in secretions. It's really cool. It just depends on the cellular makeup of what's glowing on the animal or from the animal. And this fish in particular, Brian was kind of on the right track in that it does glow in order to help see other glowing animals. That's one of the reasons its eyes can move, is to capture bioluminescence from other creatures, or even to capture biofluorescence, right?
Cool.
It's shining this light and it might capture those unique colors emitting from other animals.
Really neat, really neat.
All right, I think we've got 2 more animals, so let's see what we have.
Check it out. We talked about this one a little bit, but let's see for anyone who tuned in a little late, who remembers our local swell sharks. Which one are they? All right, let's see. So swell sharks, are we thinking bioluminescent, or creating their own light, or biofluorescent, reflecting that light? Delaney, do you want to tell us why a swell shark has that funny name of swell shark?
Ooh, so swell sharks, their name actually alludes to a defense mechanism they have. So when they feel like they're threatened or they're scared, what they will do is they will quite literally swell up like a balloon. And so you can imagine if you're a predator trying to take a bite from this swell shark, and all of a sudden you have this swelling animal in your mouth, you're going to spit it out and swim away.
Exactly.
It's really cool. And if you, some aquarists are our staff who take care of our animals on our husbandry team have probably seen this happen before.
Yes.
So, yes.
I have never seen a swell shark puff all the way up before to their full size. However, I have seen one get a little bit grumpy and get a little like chubby. And we did have a question once on one of our kelp cams. Somebody asked, are they related to pufferfish? It's a similar defense that they have against predators, but they are not closely related. One is a true shark, which has a cartilage skeleton, our swell shark, and a pufferfish is a bony fish. They have hard bones like we do inside their body. So that is just 2 different animals that evolved the same very good way to protect themselves from predators, which happens a lot. All right, let's see. This one's pretty quick because I think that we told you guys the answer earlier. Looks like Megan got it. It is dun 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 dun, biofluorescence.
Good job.
Good job.
Biofluorescence. All right, so let's move on to our last animal, which is probably going to be a familiar one for everybody.
Oh yeah, we talked about this one a little bit.
Good. So we have got an anglerfish here. And anglerfish are really interesting because people imagine them to be these huge, giant, scary fish. And they're, I don't know if I want to say opposite. They're a little scary looking, right? It's probably a way for them to scare their food. But they're not large fish at all. They're actually pretty small because animals in the deep ocean, they grow at a really slow rate. Given it's cold, their metabolism slows down. So not all animals in the deep ocean are large. A lot of them are quite small. So anglerfish, this one's a pretty tiny creature. So just given that its size, being a small animal, imagine how hard it is to find things or find other individuals. It can be really challenging.
Definitely. And this anglerfish, aside from using light, and please guess bioluminescent or biofluorescent, it also has some other adaptations or things that it uses to survive in the deep sea. Many times when people see pictures of anglerfish, they've been brought up from the deep sea via a net, or they arrive at the surface. They've probably passed away already. But when they're being brought up, many of these delicate little like filaments that are coming off of some species, not all of them, and they're very kind of beautiful and more complex fins are broken. So I really love this picture because it's taken of a live anglerfish, and you get to see some of those other really neat adaptations. Delaney, can you tell us what are all of these like whisker string things coming off of this fish? Because it's a little unusual to see.
I like that you said whiskers. It makes me think if a cat's body had whiskers coming out of it everywhere.
Everywhere.
Than just
around. Be a very overstimulated cat.
Yeah, so you might be able to see this anglerfish. Of course, this photo is taken of it, and it's illuminating it, right? So we can see it, but it would normally be in a pitch black environment down in the deep ocean. So it has these lures. I like that you use the word lures that stretch out all over its body to cast this sort of glowing space around itself. And so you can imagine if you're, a tiny maybe organism, tiny fish swimming around, and you see this glow in the distance, it might attract you, right? And that's one of the strategies of this anglerfish. It uses these glowing lures to lure in its prey. Now, all those thin dangling filaments coming off its body might attract them to come in. But what you might notice is it has that long sort of lure hanging off of the top of its head. And it's got the brightest bulb there. And that's really like a fishing line with bait on the end that prey is going to be attracted to. And then you can imagine what happens after. The prey.
They have those big teeth for a reason.
Yeah.
And I want to point out, Julie has commented an important point about the anglerfish is that only female anglerfish have that bioluminescent lure as an adult. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. I'm not sure if the males are able to light up in any sort of way. But Delane, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the unique relationship between a male and a female anglerfish?
Yeah. And this is just unique to when we look at animals in the ocean and we automatically assign them as male or female, thinking, oh, it's big and it's scary. And, is it a male? Is it a female? So we're looking at a female anglerfish right now. And the males are actually significantly smaller in size compared to a female. And when I say significant, imagine an anglerfish the size of my fist. That would be a female. A male anglerfish might be the size of like the tip of my pinky. Okay. Little. And what they will do is it takes a long time for a male and female anglerfish, for those mates to find each other in the deep ocean. So when they find each other, they latch on and they hang on to each other. The male literally embeds himself to the female's body, and he's not going to let go, because you can imagine it's hard to find a female that's willing to mate in the deep ocean. This is a big empty space with literally a lot of space. So you can imagine when they find each other, they're going to hang on. And so we have from our script scientists who work in labs, if they've caught an anglerfish from doing deep sea investigation, looking for different organisms that live in the deep ocean, they've brought up an anglerfish before that has had more than one male attached to her body, which is just fascinating. It's such a neat part of science to think that's how some animals need to survive, is to lure it on.
And what's really amazing too is that over time, after the male bites onto the female, their blood will start to mix together, and then the male's organs that are not in use will start to shrivel, and he essentially becomes a sperm factory for that female anglerfish. So nature is an amazing thing, guys. So let's see. We've had a lot of talk about anglerfish in the comments. Thank you guys for all of your great anglerfish facts. I knew they were cool, but I didn't know you guys loved them so much. So it seems like most of the guesses are for bioluminescence. What do you think, Delaney?
I think bioluminescence, absolutely.
I think so too. So while the lady's pulling up our last slide, yes, it's bioluminescence. So anglerfish will most often have the bioluminescence in that lure that they're using to attract food to try to get them to their mouth. One more thing I wanted to bring up about some of those bioluminescent animals in the deep sea, not only the barreleye fish that we were looking at before and animals like the anglerfish, many fish in the deep sea actually have bioluminescent bellies to help them blend in with the surface light, which is very, very cool. And we actually have some fish here in San Diego's waters that are just about that big called hatchet fish. And hatchet fish they look like tiles, but there's special organs on their bellies to help them blend in, light up with the sunlight coming down, which is very, very cool. So that brings us to our last slide, where we want to say thank you guys for participating with us, but and also round up all the different ways that creatures are going to use light. All right, Delaney, you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so in the very beginning of our talk today, we asked you to think about the question, why do some ocean organisms glow? And at one point or another, a scientist had this same question and had to think of, what do I already know? What is my guess? And how am I going to move forward to test this? And of course, there are so many different reasons why organisms glow. Some of the big reasons we've talked about is communication. Animals that may be lacking in other senses or biological abilities might be able to use light to help communicate. That's a huge, huge part of survival, especially in the deep ocean. One that got brought up quite a bit, and I feel like it's good that we ended on our anglerfish, is talking about food location or prey attraction. I feel like Caitlin and I could talk about glowing animals and finding food, attracting food all day long, but
probably multiple days long.
You can imagine this bright, glowing light in the deep ocean being really attractive for prey. And then also the opposite, being in the dark ocean, you're going to want to use light to find that prey. Just like we use flashlights if we're trying to navigate at night and find something, if we're camping and we can't find something in our tent, or, we don't want to wake up anyone walking down the hallway, so you turn on your flashlight. There's so many reasons light is so valuable in the animal kingdom. So food and prey are really, really important to why animals glow in the ocean. And camouflage, I think, Caitlin, maybe camouflage is not one people might think of right away.
No, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to give that example of having a glowy belly to blend in with that surface light if you're an animal that's swimming around kind of in the middle of the ocean, not right at the bottom or not right at the top. But camouflage with light is seems bizarre to us as a land mammal, but for a deep sea fish or a deep sea invertebrate, totally normal for them, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. And our last one, self-defense. These animals, they might use light to be able to get away from their predator. I liked Caitlin's chicken nugget analogy of you're about to bite into a chicken nugget and all of a sudden it glows up and it lights up. That's going to surprise you. So that element of surprise is also something that animals use to their advantage in being able to bioluminesce in their environment. So these are just a few of the overarching ideas of why animals would glow in the ocean. And there's so many different mechanisms as to how they communicate using light, how they might defend themselves using light. And so I encourage all of you to keep your investigation going and to research new animals we didn't talk about today, and to keep thinking about this question, especially with these natural events happening in San Diego, like our red tide event.
Yeah, and I think also you'll be able to fact check the news sometimes. I think that with events like this, I'm so happy that researchers like Michael Latz from Scripps Oceanography has been able to go on TV and help share this with news outlets around the world, because it's a really amazing way for the whole world to get excited about a scientific, oceanographic phenomena and event. So it makes me all feel like we're fabulous nerds getting excited about the bioluminescence. So thank you guys. And I hope that you'll be able to apply some of the things that you've learned from Delaney and I today. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. But this is an experiment for us today to try something new with you while the Kelp Cam is down. So thank you to everyone who participated. We really appreciate it. And please let us know in the comments if you like this format or if you'd like us to do more things like this. I know that we have our Tuesday and Thursday shows, our live streams for you next week. And we're really looking forward to those as well. So thank you so much, guys. And I think that we will talk to you next week. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.